Are we live? Okay, thank you. By the way, I've been looking back at the some of the previous meetings on our website, so they're findable and you can see them. It looks good. Thank you, guys. Okay. With that, we normally have a opening prayer to open us up. Do I have a volunteer?
I will.
George, would you please? Thank you.
Okay. Dear Lord Jesus Tupia, thank you for the gathering of these members of the board. Help us all to make wise and educated decisions. Guide us through this meeting. Protect us all. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. All right. Attendance, please.
Okay, Henderson,
Yes.
Brian Noble. Here. Ken Pitt. Here. Clayton Matt.
Here.
George McLeod.
Here.
And absent is George Speaks.
Okay. And so we'll hit pause and welcome George to the Flathead Reservation Water Management Board.
Thank you.
Good to see you and welcome. Yeah. And I'm glad you applied. I'm glad you were appointed and so on. George, I mean, I'll let George speak for himself, of course, but you know, one of the things that we are going to benefit from here in the long run is the data that we've been talking about, our databases. And what got us here is the settlement of our compact. What a large piece of what drove the process in settling the compact was data, water data. And George, for decades now, has been in charge of collecting water data on the reservation, and that doesn't really get enough recognition because that data became the core of the discussion during our negotiations and was used by not only the tribal government, tribal staff, but the state and the United States, and that was because of the amount and quality of the data that was produced. So anyway, George.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything you want to?
I started with the Natural Resource Department in 1982, and there was probably 8 to 12 of us. And, you know, since then it's grown to be a pretty big outfit. Me and Bill Faust started measuring stream gauging right off the bat in fall or 82. And we measured for 3 years and we didn't have computers. I actually seen our IT program and the computers and all that get developed by our hydrologist. And we had 3 years of data and the lawyers were like, we got to have this data worked up. And we didn't know what to do. So, you know, we just started working it up, and then we brought in a USGS hydrologist that had, you know, retired with them, worked down in Sacramento and spent some considerable time teaching us how to work our records, how to apply shifts and all that. And now we're 90 some sites that are on a web portal that we're just now training our hydrotechs to start making it real-time data. You know, it says provisional on our web portal, but a lot of people are taking that information for gospel. So we're trying to make it as true to being right as we can. And it's a pretty big process. We're hiring a couple more hydrotechs and keeps us very busy. And I look forward to hopefully helping here, you know, do what I can, learn from you people.
Thank you and welcome.
And I'm also very grateful for being able to work for the tribe for so long. And I'm going to stick in there for a few more years yet.
George and I started at the same time.
Yeah, I watched Clayton make his career climb and get his education. Quite proud of him. Done a great job.
And we're here. Okay, thank you, George.
You're welcome.
Meeting minutes, as always, are kept on the DNR3 and CSKT websites for those of you in the audience and those of you in the online audience. So welcome. We, as always, like to check to see if any of our items pose any kind of potential conflict of interest. So we just go around and double check if you've had a chance to look at the agenda. So Shane, any potential conflict of interest for you?
Sir.
Roger? Ken?
No.
And George?
No.
And none for me. All right. Thank you. Any comments, questions, or changes to the agenda? If none, when you're ready, I'll take a motion to adopt. If there's any thoughts or questions, let's discuss. Motion by Ken.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Roger, all in favor to approve the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, agenda approved. We have a standing public comment section for items not on the agenda. So any public comments? If you have any, please let us know. Sir, any public comments? Okay. Anybody online? Okay, no one available for public comment, so we'll move on. Meeting minutes from January 16. So we take a look at those, and any questions, let's clear them up. Otherwise, when you're ready, I'll take a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
There might not have a quorum on the January 16 minutes. Since George wasn't here, George is not.
I think we have a quorum to vote. I think it's just majority of the quorum. So, and the 16th, I wasn't here.
Okay.
It was me that was
Okay.
here. So I think we can, if you approve it, will there be approved?
Okay.
I guess I approve the January 16, 2024 minutes as provided.
Motion by Roger, to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second by Ken, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Right. Health Insurance Committee updates. So I understand, thank you, sir. Understand we made a little progress. So, whoever wants to take it away, be Roger, Ethan, both.
Okay, I guess I can start. The committee was Ken and I. And we last meeting adopted a health insurance policy through Blue Cross Blue Shield of Montana. It had to be for a very small business because that's what essentially we are, is less than 50 people. And that was the only policy that exists for our type of entity. I guess the big thing was we approved, basically an $850 allotment per employee. To be applied to their health insurance. And, we had two gold options, we declined the silver options. And, one of the options was, a traditional policy. And we thought it had a flexible savings account. But, and I forgot my explanation from Judy that got me for that, I set out before I came. But anyway, in finding it out, it became apparent that there were two corporations that can do what's called a POP, which is a premium only plan. And a premium only plan is kind of the administrator for the whole health insurance plan, is the way I understand it. And that was Pacific Source and Blue Cross Blue Shield, and each one of those, one was going to be $75 a month and the other was $85 a month. And because of those costs and some other costs, it was decided that it wasn't cost effective to have the flexible savings account. The flexible savings account, from my understanding, was kind of a precursor to the health savings account, which is the HSA. So another attribute of that FSA is that initially, at the start of the year, the employer, being the Flathead Reservation Water Management Board, would contribute $2,000 to that FSA. And if the employee left after 2 months, that $2,000 is supposed to be like a monthly thing, but it goes in automatically at the first of the year. The employee leaves after 2 months, we're out 80% of it, you know. So there were some drawbacks to the FSA too. And because of those two things, the cost and the drawbacks, it was decided, I guess I made an administrative decision last week to the FSA probably wasn't a good option, or wasn't a viable option, I should say. And so we still have the traditional one, which you can go through, and it has a certain deductible and whatnot, or you can go through the high deductible, high HP plan, which has the HSA. And so, for instance, a common, this is just an approximate, if there's $600 per employee for their health insurance, and that leaves $250 additional. That $250 can be put into an HSA. The HSA travels with that individual for as long as they have the money in that account. And it can be applied to any kind of healthcare coverage, whether it's prescription drugs, dental, health, chiropractor, whatever. They can use it for all of those kind of different things. So the HSA is really the way things are going now anyways. And so in addition to the Blue Cross Blue Shield health coverage, we also had them for vision, because they provide better vision coverage at a lesser cost than the VSP network. We also elected to give all the employees $30,000 of life insurance coverage per person, and that's at the expense of the board, and that's going to be $5.40 a month. So it's pretty nominal cost, but $30,000 is the maximum that that could be offered under these policies. We also offer Delta Dental through Allied Administrative, and so it's a pretty good package. This package competes with some of the best options offered out there in the private consulting sector. So with that, I guess that's about what I have. It's my understanding from Judy that everybody's enrolled. Friday was the deadline for enrollment. We need to cut a check to cover some of these costs, so I'll get with Ethan after the meeting And we'll get a check. And I can hand deliver that if we need to. Judy is also set up with Marie Fong, our accountant, to administer the various things, and she's provided Marie a spreadsheet, so all of that is taken care of too internally. So anyway, yeah, we made some progress.
Awesome, thank you. So you've been talking to this, I'll just say this insurance person, so, and you've mentioned her name, could you clarify who this is and where they're at?
Sure. The lady's name is Judy Sharp. She's an administrator, with Marsh McClellan out of Kalispell. Marsh McClellan purchased Payne West, which was a large company, and Marsh McClellan is even bigger. But Judy's specialty is small business provider, and she probably administers hundreds of different policies for different businesses throughout the state.
So she will be our plan administrator.
Yeah, and Judy came down last Tuesday, I believe it was, and provided a presentation with all the employees and handed out the application forms and whatnot. So, and explained all the different attributes of the policy.
Super. Thank you. Is there anything remaining on the insurance? Just
this
you
check.
said just to cut the check. Yeah,
Checks in the mail.
yeah. All right. Any questions? Board members? Okay, Ethan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the checks are already cut and we can put them around and we can
Okay.
walk away with them if you'd like. I did want to double check, the POP was generally different than the FSA,
Yes,
and the POP is, I understood that was still on effect.
of course, I'll double check, but we still have to have some kind of POP to be the administrator of the policy. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just, but because the POP administrator then is kind of the go-between to make sure we stay in within the bounds of insurance policy criteria legally. And so so we really need to have that, because then they provide updates, they provide all of the legal background and whatnot, so.
Super. Okay.
Yeah, just for the POP, what it also does is it functionally takes any contribution from an employee and takes the premium out of their paycheck before it even becomes a taxable.
Correct.
Which is why it's an important part. It's not double check.
Yeah, but so you're right, Ethan. I had notes on that. The POD make sure it's not taxable. It comes out pre-tax. They do that kind of administrative work. So
Good. Thank you. What I'm wondering is, if we don't already have it, if they could provide one page or less write-up, maybe bullet points that sort of lays out what we have.
okay.
Would that, if that
Yeah,
would be,
sure.
I mean, it'd be nice to kind of just see it right in front of us and.
You bet.
Something for the board to look at. Okay. Any other questions on the health insurance update? Jane? All right, guys. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Ethan. I know we put a lot of time into this. Resolution number 4, notice and comment. Ethan, could you remind us what we're doing here?
Yes. All you have to do is enact your resolution about the notice and comment policies for the board and the office of the engineer. This was written up for you by your legal attorney. You guys went through approval process, it's all good to go.
Oh, okay.
I just have to sign this. Haley's on the. Haley's on here if she wanted to talk. Discuss anything, but this is really just an enactment step.
Okay. Or I gotta remember to write 24.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
It's been a challenge. Questions on this too, please?
Ellie, did you have any comments on that? If you're on?
I do not, no, just need some signatures and we're good to go.
All right, very good. Thank you and welcome, Haley.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Oh, for a page, sure.
Sir? That it?
That's it for that item, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, thank you. Water engineer PTO accrual rate. So Ethan, I understand you have a little bit of an update there.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members, I sent you some updated documents. I did get a hold of the federal government and they offered to show evidence of past employment, which is a SF-50. And has all of the personnel actions associated with you during the job, that particular job. I also contacted the state of Montana and requested them to provide something similar. They're a little different, the two documents. I was able to determine that the records for my contract work as an ecologist are difficult to get a hold of. They're with the National Archives. And so I threw the foul on that and updated the memo requesting past experience, modifying it with just dropping a year's experience off of there.
Do we have it and do we need action? Or are we just needed the documentation, is that right? I'm just trying to remember, Roger, remember, I think what we were looking for, Ken, was just, we had approved, but we wanted the documentation and this provides that documentation.
I believe that's correct.
Was that, did I get that right?
That was what I understood, but I don't presume to. You know,
No,
I don't want to overstep my.
I think that's the case, and so that with that, then you have been able to calculate then what that is.
Yeah,
Okay.
But I don't think Ken's seen it, so.
I'm having trouble with my emails.
we got people for that.
Didn't discover it till yesterday.
I guess my question is, what is this essentially a lot more paid time off? So we're giving you, like you were an employee from 2001 or something? That when you were, no, before 2001, but your employment started, 2001 with the feds, it looks like.
It's about the accrual rate, and when we hire someone, the question is, what's their background? And we had that discussion about what their background is, and we took action and approved it in the policy, what that would be. And so I think Ethan we're just trying to get caught up to that, because I think Ethan had been working for some time before the policy was ever adopted, and now trying to provide that background. And so we're settling that, and that if that's settled, then I think we can move on. Unless you have any other questions or concerns, I think we can move on.
No, Mr. Chairman, what I'll do is that meets your approval, I'll back calculate and get the correct PTO rate, because I haven't known what my PTO accrual rate is since I was hired. So
And now you can calculate that.
yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Just for our information, would you make sure you just provide that to us when you complete that?
Mr. Chairman, there is a signature block for you on the memo. So I'll need to. Yeah.
Okay.
I need you to sign off on.
When
it.
that comes.
And that's just one of our, well, I wanted to wait till this.
That's fine.
Presume.
No, that's fine. That's fine,
That,
but we don't have it here.
No, I
Yeah,
know, I might be able to print it out for you and have it by the end of the meeting.
That's-
My point is, you'll not only have it, I need you
Oh,
to sign it.
you bet.
It's part of our personnel.
Roger.
So I guess my other question is, do James and Christie have this sort of computations coming also? It seems like we should have gotten all three of them at one time, not one, and get them sporadically.
You want to clarify that? I thought we did
Sure,
those.
Mr. Chairman, board members, it's generally my responsibility to do the PTO approval rates for the employees, and your responsibility to do it for me. And based on your direction, which it seems like we found a landing spot on the type of documentation that you're looking for, I am gonna follow up and with both James and Christie and let them know now this is the standard that you're looking for. So they will actually have to go track down a higher standard of past documentation than I was willing to accept before. I was more leaning on it before. So we'll do that, but I had already put them through the paces. We did have an adjustment for their past work. That said, we'll have to renegotiate that based on this high standards for documentation.
Thank you. Roger, clear enough? Okay, Ken, anything else? Shane, George? Okay, item 3.5, board compensation submissions through 12/20, and I made a correction on mine. I think I was not at the last meeting, so.
Printed that out for you.
So there is a printout, what you need to do is let us know if there's any changes or corrections that need to be made to this. And we have been taking action on this to approve this.
I think I have a couple of things, but I can go over those with James.
Is there?
I'm just missing some per diem on here.
Well, once we approve this, we're gonna take action to approve this. We should probably at least get on record what the changes are.
Sure, so Tuesday, January 16th, there's no per diem showing. Should have been the standard per diem. The same with January 30th today. For traveling.
Okay. And the standard is,
Well, I usually apply for lunch, and I guess depending upon what time the meeting is, if it's a morning meeting, then breakfast. If it's an evening meeting, then it's dinner.
okay. So for this, the 16th and today, what do you want in there?
I don't have the per diem rates in front of me. Do you?
I can pull it up. Maybe it's $16 for lunch.
And they are in your notebooks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're second page and go.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
If you flip just right, literally the second page after that. Oh,
I don't have it.
I'll print it.
you know, did you get, I've got See if Ken has it, and you can take a look at it.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. There you go.
Let me see it.
And thank you for these binders as well.
Well, obviously still a work in
No,
progress.
no,
I
no,
guess.
that's
Um,
fine, but it's,
Try to make sure we've got.
it's
what
going
I
in the right
think we've got
direction
in here. Looks like we might have had a goof up on.
Yeah, I don't see it there.
Per diem rate, sorry about that.
Funding.
So, yeah, it's.
We'll get there
It's it's the $16 one.
for both days.
Yes.
Okay. Any other, you're good, you good?
You're good.
And George is not here, we'll have to.
Mr. Chairman, I did specifically reach out to board member Sneeze about her compensation to verify that these were correct. And so she has affirmed that we got her stuff correct.
Okay, there are no other questions with the changes requested by Roger. If you're ready to approve, we'll approve.
Yeah, and move to approve with Roger's changes.
Motion by Ken, second by Roger, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to really thank you. James for doing this. I'd like to support you.
Yeah, it simplify, I know it's a lot of work for you guys, but it simplifies it for us and probably keeps Ken off the hook from having to master his spreadsheet skills.
Keep putting it off.
Other board business, anybody, Shane? Roger?
Nope.
Ken? George?
No.
Okay. And no one stopped me. Did we have any public comment on our compensation? I see one head shaking, no. Any other public members have a comment? Anybody online?
We don't have anyone.
Okay, no one caught me on that, but there you go.
Apologies, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay.
I'll watch you closely.
I'll slip now and then. Water engineer updates.
Mr. Chairman, board members, things have been busy around here. Some previously unexpected tasks fell upon the office, along with some interesting weather since we last met. So we've had some days of not being able to get, actually only one missed day. In general, though, while we've been here, there's been an increase in walk-in traffic and quite a bit of need to do additional coordination with the Tribes Water Right Office and the wireless team to sort out, these water right issues as we go forward on things. So a lot of increased public service and partnership service.
Any examples?
Sure. So it took a lot of work to figure out how to handle the database structure for the eventuality. If the tribes were to buy fee land and then convert that fee land to trust status, there is a provision in the compact that allows the tribes to then take the water rights associated with that fee land and convert that to part of the tribal trust, which thereby changes the priority date to an 1855 priority date. And also goes along with all the other caveats of being part of the water of the tribes, part of the tribal water right, which includes exclusion and consideration from abandonment and other things like that. And so that is a unique water right activity that took a fair amount of thinking from both our legal staff, folks out of the tribe's water right office, folks out of the working on the WIRIS, which is the Water Right Information System, which is the big water right, includes the water rights database that all these things are gonna get housed in. To make sure that as we go forward, we have an appropriate set of steps that can be taken. You know, what had to be determined also is to consider the length of time in which actions like that might occur. So we generally came up with the fact that, you know, upon immediate purchase, there'd be a regular water right ownership update through the state of Montana, because it is a fee land situation. That down the road, the tribes will apply to us through a new form that we'll create, which is a water right trust transfer form, specifically cited out in the compact. And the way we think we can achieve a trust transfer form is to do first a change, and then it will be one of the only types of water right ownership updates that we do in our office, which would be then to convert the water right ownership from CSKT to BIA and trust for the tribes.
United States.
So that's probably longer than you wanted, but
No.
that's kind of explanation.
No,
of the
good,
things.
that's good.
A lot of unique new water right problems coming into the office as well. So it allows us to kind of step and fetch and figure out how to handle things.
Fantastic, thank you. Shane.
No, this is great, and I appreciate hearing those examples, and it also makes me think of the reverse example of something coming out of trust. When you trust the fee, if the individual in the law wants to remove their land from trust, that it's going to be a backward. So is that form you were talking about, can it handle it both ways?
This chairman, board member Erickson, you cannot take a water right that is part of the tribal water right out of the trust. That it's my best understanding, and I'm not gonna act like I'm not lawyering up here on you too hard, but my understanding is that that can no longer, that can't be permanently divested from that trust in the future. So the discussion that we've had about those scenarios is that will probably be something that gets handled in the TSR system, for lack of a better word, where you could have a designation that part of the tribal water right could be used on that appropriate fee land. You know, and it'd still be pertinent, but that the ownership itself would be retained. And those are still forward going things. I'm still receiving, you know, kind of information about how the tribes desire to get that managed and administer those types of water rights, but so it's a little different. It's a one-way arrangement, and so any of those individual fee parcels that are registered for under the tribe's registration process will get water rights that are in the name of the tribal tribe, the United States on behalf of CSKT. And that's done. That's a done deal in terms of that headline ownership. Now, we recognize that leaves some limitations, which is why the WIRIS team has also been working to add a field to all the water rights on the reservation that would allow the recording of a TSR tract, and which is new, right? And significant, frankly. It's both in cost and complexity, and the folks have really done a good job trying to work that up. And we hope that will enable, you know, CSKT folks and possibly even on some other reservations, the Indian water management offices to help track where those water right uses are located in a way additional to geocode or additional to lat long.
Just just for board information, so some of the team people you're working with on this?
Out of the tribes water rights, Christina Cornwall has been somebody I've been talking to a little bit. There's on the wireless team, we have our own folks, be Anna, James, and Kathy, who's absent right now, but we'll be back on that. Then we've got folks from Respect. There's 4 regular Respect folks. Got Ben back here with the DNRC, along with other DNRC folks, all kind of trying to coordinate solutions. Joel Harris, the DNRC, has been super helpful on these, trying to help resolve these things, which are kind of that spot where the administrative and the technical capability and the legal responsibility all sort of come together, where we try to look for practical and achievable way to handle and administer those water rights.
Solutions. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Okay. I know you got more.
Well, I'm just trying to give you an update, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
and not steal the.
No,
the time out of
you're
your
just answering questions.
Sure. Okay, we've done a fair amount. We did some orientation with a new board member recently. We're lucky enough to drag George into the office and sit and talk through things, at least to offer what I could for background information and try to keep that door open. Got him set up with an email account, so I'll be distributing that to everybody. He's got not a laptop, but a laptop assigned to him now as well. And so I think Board Member McLeod, you are set to go.
Yes, I am.
Minus your trying to get rid of your provisional name tag there. But
There you go.
and
That's me.
Oh, there you go.
and as things develop, you got your notebook, and we'll try to keep updates coming with the notebooks as resolutions occur and other documents. We also got some movement on getting things set up for Kathy Schubert, new employee who will be coming here. So her email's all set up, got her set up on a laptop, and she's going to be ready to start here sometime in February. We did quite a bit of work, almost able to pull the trigger on the hiring of the 2 new positions, but we ran into a few hiccups on some of the documents and getting things up on the web. I suspect by tomorrow, Thursday at the absolute latest, those announcements will go out, 2 positions under any of 3 categories, so that'll be exciting. I'll share that announcement with everybody, and we'll be publishing that in some papers. I'll be asking Georgia to spread it around over at the college. I'll be asking Georgia yourself to help us spread the word through tribal membership. Obviously Roger and Ken will help us to spread the word through their channels. But anyway, I'm looking forward to having that moved along and out. I mean, what I've got set up right now is that we would have the priority screenings on February the 20th. It doesn't mean that we have to take action. That's priority screenings, just so if there's not something in that pool, you wanted to give it a longer amount of time, I've left it so that
Just whatever's available at that time.
Yeah, and so we can opt based on what the results are on taking action however we would like to, and that'll be a play by ear, see who applies. Right?
So I guess advertising wise, I mean, today's virtually that's only 3 weeks, usually advertise longer than 3 weeks.
The mandate in the policy that you said was 2-week minimum. I'm happy to go longer, by the way.
Yeah.
Not trying to.
Are they advertised as open until fill? Is that what we're doing?
Well, right now they're advertised just as a priority screening on the 20th, and
What does that mean if we
we
don't
can
select?
do
We,
open until fill.
I just trying to understand the difference.
Well, I mean, to me, it's implied. But
We can be really specific if you'd like to leave it open to them.
I'm just asking what, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but
Well, I think we need to get it out to different entities, you know, like that Nancy Haystead or Heisted, whatever her name is, with
Through the AWRA.
AWRA, she's always sending out announcements for DNRAC, DEQ, whoever else. She could be sending those out to all of those people that receive it. It's virtually everybody that's in AWRA, at least in Montana, you know, so. And then you might want to look at the groundwater journal or something like that too, you know, so. To me, these are. One of those positions is a very upper, high level position. We want to get a good pool of candidates.
yeah, we can go longer. What would you prefer?
I think 4 weeks is a minimum, really. On this kind of thing.
Well, the policy says 2, but if we agree at least by consensus to go 4 weeks, then they can do that if that's what you're proposing.
And then are we gonna have a hiring committee like we did with other positions? Is that what we're gonna do?
Sounds like a motion.
If you
Yeah,
make a
sure.
motion, dude, I felt like I already kind of had direction that you would be one board member on the hiring committee for the hydrologist and hydrogeologist, and then Georgia had already volunteered to serve that. I am hoping that we can limit the participation to one board member on the hiring committee, so it doesn't look like a board action,
Yeah, no,
you know.
are you
Yeah,
comfortable with that?
yeah, I think Georgia expressed the interest too, like you said.
Okay.
I think
So consensus, so let's go back to the timeframe consensus. Even though the policy says minimum 2 weeks, consensus to go 4 weeks. Shane,
I think that makes sense.
Roger,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
George, okay, we're good. Let's do that. Thank you.
And the 4 weeks is so you can get a higher qualified candidate.
Right.
More
Yeah.
time to get people to notice it and
Notice
apply.
it and apply. Yeah, makes sense.
Just to play the other side of that coin, people who are anxious to get jobs right now might not want to wait that long to get picked up somewhere else. I kind of went off. My 1 extra week on a 2-week period is still longer than what most of the federal jobs, most of the state jobs, most of the and that's like 3 state offices, more than what they're doing. Again, I'm happy to do whatever, just giving you some information. I do know at least one place who's interested in applying to one of those is itching to a job.
We're good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members. Set up some training for staff and myself. We've got a SharePoint training set up through our IT outfit, and that does promote me to ask you a question. They are offering also security awareness training. Our staff is going to do that. I am suggesting that board members participate in that as well, where there's a little training that you get through our, I'll send a link out to you if you're willing to participate in it. You go through and listen to the thing and answer the questions and what kind of security? All cyber security.
Oh, okay.
This is all about our IT system and
Computer and eventually data, I assume.
yeah, but most of it is, managing your digital resources from email to, hard drives.
SharePoint training, security awareness training.
The SharePoint training.
You guys are
is
gonna,
just for staff.
okay, so the security awareness training, you're gonna do that. You're inviting us, is there a cost for us?
You've already paid the cost as
Okay.
part of.
So no
our
additional cost.
contract.
No additional cost, so. I think it's probably worth just making sure everybody has that. And then we can participate as, I mean, is the training, so describe the training again, it's something that. Is live or just online or? what
It's
is it?
online at your own time.
Okay.
You get a link at the start of every month and
Okay.
there's a module for. That again, it's not like a big,
Yeah.
long thing. Of course, I've taken one of them as a.
I'd like to read, I know I'd like to.
Okay, I'll send that around, participate if you will, that is what I just heard you say, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
James and I are gonna meet up with Haley and Missoula on 2/7 to do appeals and hearings training and go over, for the OE, and go over our documents that guide that. And tomorrow, James is going out with the CSKT water measurement program, which is great because that's something that was formally listed in his requirements for his hydrologist to the training.
So question, this February 7th meeting with Haley. We're also meeting with her on February 20th about appeals, are they different subjects or?
Yeah, so there's appeals that we hear in our office that if somebody gets denied or modified on a water right in a way that they didn't like, then they're first, before they get to appeal to you, they have to appeal to our office.
So yes, there's a difference.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do a better job than just a yes or no, and yes, there's a difference, and we have hearings. I don't believe you have to manage hearings. So the complaint process, which we'll talk about in a minute, the first, right out of the gate, we're gonna do a hearing in this office, so, we'll see what we have to do about, office coverage on that day. I'm not sure. I've tried to ask Clayton to cover for us, but respond to my emails.
What? I just want to back up. You said something, we're doing something on the 20th and I just don't have it on my.
We're supposed to meet with Haley on the 20th.
It's proposed for your
Oh,
next
down here.
step on item 10 of your agenda.
I see.
But
Is that the mock hearing we were talking about? We were talking about doing a mock hearing and I don't know.
We could ask Haley, she's online.
Yeah, the February 20th meeting was something that I had circulated a bit ago just to see if there was interest in doing a mock appeal. In that our appeals procedures are in place now.
Okay.
as a reminder, Mr. Chairman, board members, you had requested we put a pin in that until we had a new appointee from the tribes. We have now got a new appointee from the tribes. So we're bringing it back to you. I will eventually be bringing you training schedule for open meeting laws too, which those are the two items that you had suggested that we wait on it until you got a full board. And
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Haley. And I wasn't trying to leapfrog here. I didn't catch that 20th. And that's, I'm glad to hear we're still on track to do a mock hearing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the building.
Okay.
Updates about the building, on the worst weather day, the heater broke. Of course, huge thank you to CSKT and Casey Ryan in particular for right as he's getting kicked out of his own office due to weather and driving concerns, he volunteered to go pick us up some space heaters and come over here and help set them up. And that was outstanding and very kind of him. So I wanted to
I appreciate that. I know during that time I was getting communication from Ethan, I was getting communication from our landlord. It was real concern about this place freezing up. Heat went down right during the coldest days. Staff scrambled around and managed to maintain. It doesn't sound like we're completely
We're
out of the
not,
woods yet.
we are not completely out of the woods. This is also the second winter in a row that the heater is broken on us. You know, and then additionally, we had problems with the breaker popping downstairs because the wiring was dated. You know, especially compared to modern draws, and so electrician was in here on Saturday and managed getting him in and out. You know, at the end of the day, though, I would it might be worth suggesting that the landlord get a commission of, you know, professional management.
In the meantime, the board, if you remember, we took action to send letters to the state and to the tribe, requesting that they consider opening a dialogue with us to start planning for and encouraging them to plan for an actual building for this facility, for this operation. So a letter went out and we don't have a response, any reply to that at all yet, to my knowledge, but I think it's out there, and I think if we don't hear something soon, we should probably see if we can get some kind of response.
And for George's, you know, background information, just to let you know that one way or another, we really have got to do something before the summer gets here. These offices are getting over 90 degrees.
Hot in the summer, cold in the winter.
You know, the cold is more, because of Montanans, the cold is more manageable. You know, but the heat is pretty rough. We've also just gone through this mold remediation process. There is still out here some latent water down in the downstairs, and I also will look for your direction when you see the difference in the electric bill as a response to our trying to keep the pipes and everything from freezing with electricity instead of gas. It would be substantial, I think, for this month's wattage.
Any questions? Comments? Okay, thank you.
All right, I think I had a note on here about health insurance to let you know that I think I've got Marie. She's close to having everything set up at her end, and I think we got everything. Everybody's all signed up and appropriate, but I believe that's all handled so far. It did. It probably took a little bit of the time away from Marie that I had hoped she'd be working on the reports that I need to advance our budget efforts. So those payroll reports that she owed me from last November and December are told today that they're close. That's those are my updates from the office. I you know, I think we already gave you a report. You know, come early February, we'll give you updated reports on January water right applications and budget expenses, trying to hopefully get the format that has been requested sorted out. But the 6th is just days we have.
Any other questions? Just a little more on where we're at on the budget.
Sure, so the budget, you know, where we're at on the budget is we got the new information about $850 per employee. So that is got to get integrated into the budget, along with, you know, any of the other expenses, which it doesn't seem like there's any other ones, but I gotta wait for Marie to tell me what kind of additional admin fees there might be. Then there's a desire for me to convert the budget to a running total of what's been used by each category. For that, I'm specifically lacking on payroll information because the payroll information for workers' comp and payroll itself and taxes associated with payroll, like all that, it just comes in as an automatic withdraw, you know, from our accounting services, and so until gives us, populates those withdrawals, it's difficult to tell what is what. And so that's the kind of the next hold up is getting, better descriptions of the automatic transactions.
On that point, if that's gonna continue to be a holdup, we might wanna do something, provide the board with something so that we can, have that at least with the footnote that the, other information is waiting, but let's see how that goes. Roger.
Yeah, I guess I am really at a point where I want to see a budget. I heard what you just said, Ethan, but when I look back at what you gave us, and there's a payroll section on here that's for every employee per month, so per pay period. So I don't know, and really the payroll, all we're looking for is we know what all we want is the total monthly on there, so we can see where we are on a monthly basis relative to our total budget, So I guess I'm at the point where I'm reluctant to approve much more around spending until we know where we're at.
Yeah, we need a budget, so. All right, thank you. Anything else on the update?
There's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Item number 5, end of public notice period for complaint process.
Mr. Chairman, board members, we ended as you'll recall, you developed policies and procedures that will eventually become part of your WP&P, but in a one-off to deal with complaints. And this would be complaints about water use. And we went out to a 15-day comment period. We got no comments. So that's where we're at. As discussed, we've got a training set up for our office for hearings and appeals considerations. What I need is, what are the next steps going to be? I have a suggested set of next steps, but it really is up to the board what you want to see for the next steps.
End of public notice period for complaint process means that we put something out for public comment, and there were no comments.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And so now that we have had that out for public comment, do we need action on that to approve that piece?
Mr. Chairman, board members, you would need action on that and action to approve the updates to the draft forms, which include a formal and an informal process. And we can either put that package together or the thing to consider is that it'd be nice to push those past when we get the OE hearings and appeals training completed, so that we have the procedures that are needed for a hearing. Because the first thing, if we get a formal complaint, that we do is hold a hearing about the complaint. And Generally, I would say there's two options. One, we can either wing it until we'll get through the hearings and appeals formalities. Or two, we recognize we've got that set up here in early February. We probably get that more formalized before finalizing, you're taking final board action on the complaint and complaint forms process. I hope I did okay on that, Mr. Chair.
Let me back up a second. So if we're going to consider taking action on this or holding off, what I hear to simplify, we probably need a document and a form in our hand. But you want those?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, board members, I did not give you a document or a form to take action on today, and this doesn't have an underlined.
Yeah, I see that.
And I'm just looking for you to tell me if you want this on your
Next agenda.
meeting. This would be the time to tell me, or if you want me to pause until we get through this, or a third option that I have not thought of.
Thoughts?
It seems like if we meet on the 20th, if the 20th is an appeals purpose, which may dovetail with some of this, then maybe we'd be ready on the 27th to consider the finalization of those forms and the final process.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that's a good suggestion.
I'm okay.
I agree with you, Clay, and we need to see the final forms and kind of have all of that ahead of time to review so that we can approve it then.
Yeah, and I think the full package will come after. What I'm hearing is the full package that will come. But what we had was just a piece of it that went out for public comment.
Well, sorry for my confusing, because it is a little, see somebody's got their hand up. Hey, let's let Haley talk.
Haley, I see your hand is up. Go for it.
Yeah, so I can provide a little bit of clarity, here. One, just kind of administrative piece here with the, notice and comment timing. I'm looking at the website and it does list that comments will be accepted until January 31st, which is tomorrow. So I don't think it would be appropriate to approve that anyway today if on the website it's listed as tomorrow. The count is for today, but regardless, I think it's more appropriate to just wait until the next meeting to approve those. And what went out was the complaint procedures document that the board, myself and Ethan's office went through during a couple different meetings that we had. And we finalized that based on the board's comments and put that document out for notice and comment. So essentially what would be approved at the next meeting would be that procedural document just for complaints, and then the two forms that accompany the procedural document.
And is that just a piece of the larger complaint process we're talking about completing after the training?
No, so this is, the complaint procedures are it's one part of all of the different hearings and appeals that the Office of the Engineer is involved
Right,
in.
so one piece, yeah.
Yeah, but not the complaint process is just this form. Just this procedural document. What all the other items are like permit and change, domestic allowance, and etc.
I had assumed that we wouldn't take action today because we don't have them in our hand, but is there any reason to not consider approving them at the next meeting, which is next week? Or would it be advisable to wait until after the training, which I heard was a suggestion?
There's no reason why you couldn't approve them next week at the next meeting. That's up to the board. I think it would be wise to take in the considerations of the engineer, since he'll be the one hearing, all of these complaints.
And if we approved them next week, what are the implications of that as opposed to waiting?
Mr. Chairman, board members are meeting, I would expect in short order, I get at least 2 complaints filed in this office before we have our hearings procedures in place.
Okay,
And so,
okay, that helps clarify that. So your suggestion was to, and I think the thinking was, let's wait for the training and then approve, but even if we don't approve them next week, I'd like to see them next week. With the document in the forms. And then at least we'll have them ahead. And then we'll, after the training, then we can approve it.
just to double check, Mr. Chairman, board members, did you want me to put it on the agenda at all? To give you an option of things, and I'm, again, not trying to put ideas in your mind, and especially ones that were a little different than my suggestion, but I could have that, we can do it that way. And then I could,
I'm thinking it should be on the agenda, whether we take action or not is the question, so. On the agenda. And no action next week?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to just be able to see them and have a discussion
yeah.
about them. But then we can wait till we have our training.
Let's do that, make it a discussion item. Both of them in hand, all right, very good,
all right, thank you.
and that answers next, thank you, Haley. Okay, does that end 5?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I got one other thing.
Roger,
So relative to complaints.
you have a complaint?
Yes. Now, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Once this process is established, I've expressed my concern that I don't want this complaint process to eat up our time when we need to be issuing water rights. That's our mandate. I think it would be a good idea to just have a little synoptic summary at each board meeting on this, or once a month, on the status of these complaints, and it can be like a paragraph or something like that in our packet, so that at least we know what's going on and how much time it's consuming, or how much of a priority it is.
I want the board to keep an eye on it and, if necessary, manage that.
Correct.
Okay, and makes sense to me, so, why don't you, I don't know how you want to document that, or if you just want to remind us after the process is approved, but.
Well, I think Ethan's heard what the board's desire is, so I guess we can do a concurrence if everybody's
Yeah, Shane,
on board with that.
sound good?
Yeah, but I have just a slightly different take. from
Yep.
Roger, I like his suggestion, but I think we need to realize that handling complaints is also a mandate.
Understood?
Yes. Yeah, recognize that also.
George?
Okay. Just for a little added detail, board members, is it all right if I put that under the water engineer update section of your agenda?
That's fine.
That makes sense to me, yeah,
Okay.
I would just include that. On to number 6. Item number 6, legal. And hopefully everybody's had a chance to at least take a little bit of a look at that. I thought it was interesting, so maybe Haley can give us the highlights.
Sure. So the genesis of this resolution that's in front of you came from some public concerns for their sensitive or protectable information being put out in the public. And so the last meeting that we had, there was a a small discussion about coming up with some sort of resolution or of the like, to basically, describe what the office and the board will do to protect that information, and then also come up with a definition of what personal information actually is, because we are a public entity. And so there are documents that are part of the public record and that can be inspected by the public. And certain things like just a name would be part of the public record. So just to clarify those things so that the public can be reassured that the office and the board are doing everything in their ability to protect that information if possible. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
If there is one or two important pieces of this that you would highlight, what would that be
Sure.
for us to focus on?
Yeah, so the definition of personal information is definitely one that I think the board members should just read over if they have not done so. That does come from the state's definition of personal information, so this is what state agencies use. And I think it's applicable to what the office and the board would see. And then also, I believe, let me just find it real quick. So the second piece that I think would be a good one to just quickly take a look at, if you have not done so already, is under 2. So it's personal information, public records, and then it's number 2 under that. And it's the fact that the board and the office are not required to redact protectable personal information if somebody does mistakenly submit that before the board or the office. That is on the applicant or the petitioner to make sure that that's not on there. It does not mean that if the officer or the board notices it, that they, you know, couldn't go to that applicant or petitioner and notice them of that and request that they correct it. Or correct the filing or pleading, what have you. So those would be the 2 areas.
Members, Ken,
I had a question, and maybe I'm out of line asking it. but-
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna ask you to speak up just a little.
Oh, I have a question. This is the state's definition of personal information. It does not have a cultural component. Is that something we want to consider?
It crossed my mind when I read it, but frankly, I'm not sure what that would be.
I'm not even.
I think we can, given that this is a board policy, we can always add to this. And I would like some time to consider that, but even if we take action on it today. But I don't know, Haley, was it any consideration given to Ken's point?
Yeah, so I definitely thought of that as well, seeing as that's been a consideration in the ordinance in some instances. But I too would not be familiar with, you know, how that would interplay. And so if there is any thought or recommendation on how to weave that in, I'm definitely open to the possibility of trying to incorporate that.
Is it something that you and or Ethan could just touch base with the tribal representatives and tribal staff and just see if they had any additional input? I do see on here talks about tribal identification number or enrollment numbers. I think that's important to notice. I think that's a piece of it, so that part's covered, and it might be the biggest thing they would come up with, but if you want to check with them and get back to us, even if we approve today, we could always modify this.
Sure, can do.
Does that help?
Yes.
Yeah, and I thank you for bringing that up. Any other thoughts or comments by board members on this? I'm gonna have one, I know.
Could you help me understand what you mean by what you mean?
Just,
When I figure it out, yes.
yeah,
I think the tribal identification, tribal ID in here is important. I think
I
that's
tried to
important.
get that.
And I think beyond that, I think I appreciate Ken's sensitivity to that. I've thought about it, but, you know, Shane, George, if you guys come up with something, please let us know. I'm gonna put a little thought into it. But if Haley and, Ethan would touch base with those folks and, just get back to us, let us know.
Yeah, and then, you know, it makes me think of what data we're requesting or information we're requesting on our application forms. And,
Yeah.
You know, we really don't ask for any kind of cultural,
Yeah. Yeah,
significant information on this form. So in
Yeah.
general, I feel we're pretty good with the tribal ID and enrollment numbers and that kind of thing.
yeah. Worth considering.
Yeah, it is.
Any other questions, Roger?
No, I agree that they need to, it's a working document, we can always add to it.
It's a policy, yep, and, Ken,
I'm good with that, yeah.
George.
Yes, I'm also good with it.
So here's a thought I had after reading this, is if, especially, and the one that caught my attention was the item number 2 that you pointed out, Haley. And my question is, even if it's not written into this resolution, as an applicant, I want to know this up front when I'm applying. So how will we provide this information to the applicants so that they know this up front, so that it's not hidden from them, if that's a consideration? If I'm making sense, I'm just thinking that as people come in, as they apply, they need to be aware of that is all.
Mhm. I've seen it on, websites before, like if there's a repository of forms, on a website. I've seen personal information put on there as a definition so that people just know right away, okay, my name is, it's fine to put that on an application. So I've seen that before, but I think it would come down to just what's easiest for the office and its staff.
Yeah, and I'm particularly looking at it, it shall be the person's responsibility to remove, redact, or truncate protected personal information. So I'm thinking that the person being the applicant needs to be aware that that's their responsibility. And other than having this resolution, I'm not sure how they'd be aware of that unless we point that out.
And for what it's worth, when we catch things like that, we don't propagate them either, but, the effort that we do is in addition to what we're required of. So, and the reason I say that is because we can't necessarily be expected to catch everything. Somebody gives us a substantial trust document that we really only have because we needed to determine who the owner, who's the signatory on a trust, and it has something else in there that we didn't catch. We don't want to be responsible for that.
I get it. All I'm wondering is someone either online or in person is looking at an application. I'm just maybe suggesting that when they see that, one of the first things they see is the language that talks about personal information, so that they're given that heads up right up front, as opposed to discovering it later when, oh, I didn't know, I should have redacted or whatever. It's just a thought. I don't know, maybe I'm making too big a deal out of it, but it's my thought, maybe we should think about a way to make sure that applicants are aware of this right up front, as all, just a notice, splash page or cover page or something. I don't know.
Chairman, you see it all the time in commercial matters. This is what your information will be used for. This is what it won't be used for.
But how are we gonna provide
I
that
don't
to
know, yeah.
an individual?
Usually it's when you apply on something, there's a
Right.
page of what we will and won't do. Like, to me, that sounds a bit cumbersome, but it's something.
It's just a question. I don't know if it's the concern or not, but it was probably the one thing that jumped out at me when I read this. Beyond that, I didn't have any concerns.
I've got an idea. We could just put a link to whatever you approve. in the header or the footer of the forms. Possibly add it, the last page of most of our forms have some disclaimer type information. That would be a spot that we could, I'd rather not add it in its entirety, but cross-reference it so that if in the future you do make some modifications to adjust cultural issues or other issues as things develop, we don't need to throw out all of our forms and start over again, but something like that possibly.
Yeah, I think I'm just raising it. I'm not wanting to direct to something technical detailed, but if there's a way you can find a solution to that, that'd be great. Yeah, okay.
Something similar to that is in our forms component of our website, that you could have this, whatever we pass there, you just click on it, it would open up. And, you know, it's just a short description of what it is, so you understand that, you know, PII information will be handled this way.
Yeah.
Click on it and open it.
Yeah, I see Haley shaking her head up and down, so that's good. Yeah, that was all. I just wanted to raise that. Any other thoughts, comments on this? Okay. So, it doesn't say public comment, but we'll do public comment, now before we take action. That's okay. I just noticed that myself. So any public comment, on this resolution? I don't see anybody jumping up. Anybody online?
We don't have any public online.
Okay, no public online, no public comment on that. So if the board is ready, given our discussion to approve this, take a motion. If not, we'll continue discussion or postpone. Whatever you're ready for.
I make a motion to approve resolution FRWMB 05/2024 as written.
Motion by Ken, to take
Second.
resolution, Kit, second by Roger. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. All right, resolution approved. Thanks, Ethan.
And Mr. Chairman, board members, something that I had in my notes here to mention during the discussion phase, if you would, for this item, we did take steps to remove the couple of search engines that we could from our website page with application information on it, so that at least when people are looking for water right information about applicants, they would actually have to specifically go to our webpage as opposed to just using the Google search engine. And so that is one additional technical step that we did take to kind of improve our management of personal information.
Very good. Questions on that? Please. All right. Thanks, Ethan. Number 7, board consideration of office of engineer applicant update form 62 or 620F, is that what it is, or 620F? OE staff.
What's you, Mr. Briggs?
You comfortable there? You want my spot? Okay. All right. Board members, up next for your consideration is a form that you first saw back on January 11th. It was actually presented by Kenna. And after a quick discussion, the direction was to table it at that time and let DNRC staff have a look at it and our legal staff take a look. And since that time, we've done both of those things. And we've gotten feedback from both parties and both have, given it their seal of approval. And now, it's back up for your consideration. Just to explain what this form will do, it's an applicant update for pending water right applications. So when somebody receives authorization to construct their well, they're given a year to construct and then another year to put that to use. And in that 2-year time period, sometimes the ownership will change on a piece of land. This is just a simple form that will allow a person to change that ownership before the water right is actually issued. So at this time, I can answer your questions.
I do have a
Ken.
question. The title to me seems a little confusing. Because I look at this as, oh, I'm gonna update, what I've done and not done, and actually it's very, very limited, right? So my suggestion, and if everybody disagrees with me, if you want to just, it says, I would put in the word applicant ownership update.
Okay, yes, that was the original way it was drafted, and our legal staff suggested getting rid of the word ownership
Okay.
entirely on the form. And the reason for that is because we didn't want it to seem like there was any overlap with the DNRC form 608
Oh, okay.
ownership update. So we did that intentionally to try and kind of cover our bases.
Okay. So we just live with the.
I agree.
confusion. Okay.
Totally agree with you, but.
On that note, can you kind of highlight, you said you got feedback from both parties and then they signed off on this, so what kind of other changes were made?
So, most of the changes to the actual form came from Haley, and they were wording changes that, this section right here, the declaration section has been reduced and simplified, to make it, just a little bit more streamlined. We used to say, grantors, grantees, and it used to also say, transfers, yes, thank you, transfers and transferees, and we've reduced that just down to sellers and buyers. To make that make sense. And then from the DNRC, it was mostly just a discussion about how the form would work in the greater process. And after further discussion with them, we got their support.
What does that mean?
So the DNRC still retains the jurisdiction of ownership updates on fee lands for active water rights. And so there, I think, was maybe some confusion about how this wasn't the DNRC's jurisdiction. And so after further discussion with them, they agreed that this is an easy way to update applicants that are not in the database yet, that are just in these filing cabinets right here.
Does that mean this form will go away once we,
Yes,
the database, okay, yeah.
this is an interim.
No, we'll end up having to keep this form. Actually, even once we start putting things in the database, there's gonna be an application that will be active before a water right is issued. And at that time, we could still have somebody, do a change.
Make
like this.
changes.
And just to remind everybody, we've got 2 years sometimes between start and finish. And I don't want to get away from at least trying to keep
Of a project, yeah.
right. And then the other concern for me is that whoever files the end of that application process knows that they are the ones who are responsible for all of the terms of the application and our subsequent issuance. So it's a clear, like, this is your application now. If there's wrong information in this application, it is your responsibility, from that form. So,
Seems like, people might, I think that's a big deal. Because I think when you go back and do the historic research on water rights, when that wasn't corrected, I think that is part of what caused a lot of confusion over the years. Who owned what water right? So, seems simple enough. I mean, I know it's a lot of hard work, but I think that's a big deal myself.
I think it actually helps people if they're trying to sell an asset, not lose.
Especially at that time.
hard work, you know, that have been put forward, so there's some possible protection at the other end of this.
And I think in theory, it will reduce complaints.
Well played.
In theory.
We need public.
So you want approval of this?
That's what we're hoping for here, yeah.
Okay, public comment. Any public comment on this form? Right, very good. And anybody online?
I still don't have anyone on.
Okay. No public comment to be had. If the board is ready, we'll take action to approve this form.
It's George's turn.
Would I make a resolution or make a resolution to approve,
Make a motion.
Make a motion.
make a motion to approve 620 F?
Motion by George,
Second the motion.
second by Roger. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, very good. Thank you. Thanks, James. Ethan.
Thank you.
Continued water policy and procedures working session. Why don't we take 5? Before we jump into that. I think we've got some time to work. Good.
Give us.
All right, welcome back from the break. Continuing on with item number 8. Water engineer and legal.
All right, Mr. Chairman, board members. We are talking about the WP&P and
Would you just give George bullet points on what we're doing here?
sure. And we did try to go over this a little bit during the orientation, but let's see if my recap matches what I said the first time.
If I remember it.
All right, so what we've got going on is this is the board's first real constructed set of water policies and procedures. And so they would be a lot like the state of Montana's administrative rules that accompany statute. And so these are the things that are designed to make additional clarifications about the ordinance, the law, without inadvertently replacing or modifying the ordinance in a way that would be inappropriate. So, but there's plenty of sections of the ordinance where you get the big picture, or some of the specifics, but you quickly end up with administrative details that need to get sorted out to make clarifications so that, you know, hopefully we can get the board's direction in this written format that will allow my office to operate, allow the public to know what to expect, and sort of set this record. Our vision for all of these water policies and procedures is that they would all get drafted here, and that each section would then, as things are updated, go through the updates to it, or in this case, the original of it will go through a minimum of it's a 15-day public comment period, so that everything in here is supposed to be, we consider it to be a substantial, decision. And then trying to invite and include and encourage public participation, that way. These policies and procedures have got a couple of general items set forth in them. One is trying to sort of get some, just some operational details, a few definitions, a list of forms, list of fees, what's considered to be correct and complete on applications filed with the office, things like that. The real meat and potatoes that the board has been working on, however, has been the section about stock and domestic allowances.
Okay.
And primarily the domestic allowances portion. And the reason is because the domestic allowances have three categories. An individual domestic allowance, a shared domestic allowance, which is like one well shared between 2 to 3 houses. And then this other category of items that has not been moved forward into the public so that the public can come in and apply for them yet, which are these development domestic allowances. Now, the first two, individual and shared, are limited to a total of 2.4 acre feet annual amounts. And the latter allows for a larger amount, up to 10 acre feet. However, there is a positive water measurement requirement that does not persist for the individual or the shared wells. That said, there's a lot of interesting questions and details on how things should move forward. One, so that my office knows what to do when we see the applications. Two, so that that we're all on the same page. And then three, to make sure that we're following the board's direction, guidance on how to do our best to implement things under these allowance sections. Is that what we had in mind, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Feel free to speak up.
Okay, I have read through the sections here of the book there, what you're talking about. I do remember reading about some of that. Was
Certainly interrupt anytime for questions for any board members, of course. I'm going to try to have a little bit of a presentation for you leading into this, if that's okay with the board. One of the things the board asked for at the last meeting was sort of some schematics. So we spent some time trying to provide some schematics so that you could see some ideas. And in the schematics, which would be kind of an introduction to walk you back into the domestic allowance section of the WP&P, because we got some really good headway. Took your comments, we've incorporated those. We have also gone back and worked with Haley's office to find some things that additionally needed to be addressed. We found some things ourselves that we think need some additional consideration, and hopefully us starting off here will give some visuals for everybody on what to take a look at. So that's all right. Thank you, Mr. Franklin, in advance. Huge appreciation to James for putting this presentation. He's the large author of this one for us. All right, so here we are at the schematics. I'm going to stand up here for a minute. The first thing we had is the most general, which is like, what's the most you can do on a maximum individual domestic allowance. These schematics don't focus so much on the volume. We know that we have this 2.4 acre feet for these and the 10 acre feet for the developments, but rather, what's it look like? And so maximum individuals, one home, okay? And stock is allowed, but there's a requirement for stock tanks. There's one well attached to one house in the general, individual domestic allowance. We have got some clarification from the board in the past, which we tried to put into this WP&P as we start to structure those things, is that there are some other uses allowed, such as shops, outbuildings, ADU, which is additional dwelling unit, guest homes and other smaller affiliated building connections. We have some requirements. They need to be in close proximity to the home or the business, and that they need to be on the same parcel. So this is kind of the picture of the most common allowance that we see filed for in this office right here. And on the big side of it, they can have up to 7/10 of an acre of lawn and garden. And Bob owns this one, and Bob's gonna come up again. So anyway, here we are on the max that you can get out of a single shared domestic allowance. And so the ordinance specifies that it's connected to at least 2, but not more than 3 homes. And here is what we would see on a maximum single domestic allowance. And this again, limited to 2.4 acre feet per year annual, has a well that produces no more than 35 gallons per minute. And in this case, we have this hooked up to 3 homes. When the well is shared amongst 3 homes, the yard size shrinks to a 1/4 acre for each unit. Okay. Again, they could do some stock, they could do some other buildings and so forth, but it starts to get a little thin when you're sharing amongst this many houses. So we do take in a little context on what all you're trying to hook up to that one well. Typically, that one well's gonna, it'll limit itself out on flow rate spread between the 3 items. All right, thank you. Next one. We also have to manage this thing called affiliated ownership. And here, this is out of the ordinance. This is the definition of the development, which means closely or contiguous or closely grouped parcels of land under the same or affiliated ownership, including but not limited to housing subdivisions or any combination of businesses and or residential units. Now, when we talk about an affiliated ownership, something like this is what obviously comes up where we've got, these connected parcels. They're all owned by Bob in this case. But the reason that we're concerned about this is because, and this is something that the board had offered some guidance on previously, is that in these situations of parcels that are contiguous or closely grouped, we would put that in a unit, and once somebody was at above 3, a combination of individual or shared allowances, then that 2.4 acre feet times 4 gets pretty close to 10 acre feet. And this board had said, well, more than 3, that pushes people into a development domestic allowance situation. Okay, and so the reason that when we get an application for every individual or every shared, we look at the ownership, even though it's not listed as a development domestic allowance, we look to see what was previously issued and to make sure that we're not incrementally trying to step past that board direction. All right. Next one, please. This situation holds true for anything that already had parcels, or in this case, these dotted lines are pending subdivisions. So either already divided or pending division under that same or affiliated ownership, same deal. This, we would look at this all as a unit, for purposes of determining, once they go past the 3 threshold, that now would be into this development category. So far, it seems really, in a box. It gets a little out of the box as you get into some new circumstances, but maximum number of individual domestic allowances within a development. We went over that. This is where we're in the clear. You've got this parcel, you've got however many boundaries in here. As long as it's 3 or less, you're good to go. This is a situation where if you have 3 shared wells, we're calling it a little bit of a loophole, because under the board's past direction, technically somebody could put in 3 shared wells. And if they maxed out each shared well, they could end up with 9 homes under one, but still be considered to be under the development domestic allowance threshold. Maybe this is the board's direction, we're not sure, I don't think it was quite. We didn't ever have this drawing to show, show that situation. Certainly, as we've all contemplated it and tried to figure out where these thresholds are in our mind, sometimes a picture might help. Whether or not something was considered to be a major versus a minor subdivision with DEQ subdivision laws became a factor. There's consideration about the number of parcels that are involved, so on and so forth. But under our current direction, this is something that would technically meet the board policies. Okay, and whether or not that was the intention, you'll have to tell us and tell us how you'd like to look at it. In this situation, we do have, if you wanted to offer some additional guidance, we do have a possible solution that's written into the current WP&P, which is that that the allowance can serve can't serve more than 3 parcels. So that might address some of this situation, because in this situation, we've got 9 either existing or proposed parcels. The situation that it does not address, however, is if somebody just wanted to put 9 homes on 1 parcel. And so what the difference is between 9 homes on 1 parcel versus 9 homes on 9 parcels, or some variant in whatever direction, that's something to be considered. And so if we go off of the parcel size, obviously, it would take care of the lion's share of people using shared allowances to maybe skirt the development domestic allowance option. The other option that we just have for you to consider today is that you could consider using the number of homes and or businesses instead, which would then put that same limit onto a single parcel, and the number of homes or businesses that could be on there from any combination of individual or shared wells. So I'm gonna remind everybody here, we're trying to paint the picture of what your decisions need to kind of sculpt in these WP&Ps, and why it matters a little bit on how we handle the shared wells going forward, because and I will also say, practically, we don't see a lot of shared between 3 house wells. And so I want to be clear about that. But right now we're drafting to the whole gamut of options. So anyway, and I think that a lot of that's because when you put 135 gallon per minute well, and people are going to have to be a little conservative on how they use water, not to override that. As a matter of fact, we see more often what we see is people on a shared well wanting to get off and drill another well to quit from having to share, because they don't think the neighbor's paying their share of electricity, or they think their neighbor's using more water than it's supposed to, or that's a common, that's a way more common scenario. But again, right now we have this drafted to be parcels or lots. This board will have to contemplate whether or not they want to stick with parcels and lots. homes and or businesses or go a different route. And when we get into the text, I think that'll be right in front of you. So you can deliberate on that. Next one, please.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
So, you're in that picture then, what are you calling the parcels?
These square things would be the parcels.
And with that one person's name on all those, are we saying that person owns all of those?
Yes. Yes.
So we're talking about this being, the loophole being. So what would be so the difference between this and what it would be if this was all one development would look like what? Cause you're talking about if he owns all of them. That's like a subdivision.
Yeah, so this would, this would generally be considered a 9 home subdivision. And so then the question is, well, if this becomes a, automatic development domestic allowance, you're also gonna have to decide if this is an appropriate amount under a development domestic allowance. So the difference though would be 10 acre feet for the whole 9 houses versus 3 2.4 acre foot annual amounts. And whether or not this shared well arrangement persists once this board is off in this direction. Did that help? Sure.
I think so. I need to think about it more.
I understand a lot of caveats to this yet too.
I think so. Yeah.
So we'll just keep going. I'm reserving saying anything till we get.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm just trying to.
Sure. All right, here, this next arrangement. This is, if you ended up going off of homes. In this case, actually, the schematic works for both homes and parcels because there happens to be 3 parcels, right? But basically, with the way that the most recent draft update is any combination of shared or individual wells, so like one shared well for 3 houses, one shared well between 2 houses, and then an individual one, or this scenario where you've got 3, that would, that's more like the limit that you'd see if you draft towards parcels or homes. Now, if you go drafting towards the home option, up to 3 or homes, then this setup happens. They get that 4th house. That would be the allowance exceedance under individual or shared, and then you go into a development domestic allowance option. So I hope that's. We do need you to draw some sideboards on what is going to happen.
Ethan, can you refresh my memory on, so a standard individual domestic gets 2.4 acre feet, right?
Yes, sir.
And so 0.7 of that is lawn and garden.
Yep.
But how many acre feet gets attributed to lawn and garden?
We don't have that parsed out. And
Is there an amount that gets attributed to the domestic use portion of it?
the way we have it right now, the way that we handle them in our office is that we issue a water right for up to but not exceeding 2.4 acre feet per year. And then the only time that we start getting into calculatory thresholds so far has been when people wanted to come in and like put 50 head of bison on it. And that, on that scenario, we use the state's animal unit approach and apply that, and we go, well, this is just like much. And then when we were in a shared scenario, sharing between two houses allows, is it half an acre? Yards, I think it is. Half acre total, okay, for shared, okay, and then if, shared between two, so they're basically getting. Half acre yard that way, or shared between three, you get up to 0.75. I mean, it's pretty close though.
Yeah.
But, we have sort of refrained from trying to speculate that annual volume. Beyond things that we can actually measure, which is like yard size and the number of connections, and then obviously. Somebody's asking for a crazy amount of stock, then that kind of red flags, but generally. We've been we haven't had a lot of exceedance issues so far. Anyway,
Roger, your question, does it make a difference in your mind?
It could in how we get to where we're going here. And I'll just wait till this plays out a little bit.
all right. Next, we will be pestering you to help us determine what affiliated ownership is. Because this is not a hypothetical, this is actually something that we deal with. And so here in this case, you know, we got Bob, and we got Bob, then we got Bob. So they have corner to corner touching, but then there's other intermittent owners. We're just gonna, for the sake of this discussion, assume that Sam, Vince, Mary, and Sarah are not members of the same family as Bob, so they're different. You know, in this case, I mean, are all 4 parcels owned by Bob to be considered together? You know, or is it just those 2 that are right next to each other? You know, what happens here? That's a question, and because closely grouped is something different. And if you will, Mr. Frakes, you know, we just decided to make it a little bit more complicated. You know, here we've got 3, and then Bob's got 1 other over there. You know, is that closely grouped? We need help on these things, and you know, there's the. I mean, I guess one option is you could just say like use your judgment, and we put that in the WP&P and we can go that route, but I suspect you want to have a little more specific direction on this item. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here's our smallest development domestic allowance, which is you know, in this case, it's 1 well, 4 lots. And you know, they still could use some stock in stock tanks. You know, this is a 10 acre foot annual allocation with the mandatory water measurement. They could still get these other uses by the way that we understand your current policy direction. Measurement is of course required. And next one, please. And I wanted to take a moment to talk about something that sort of came up for us. I did talk with somebody who was struggling with the number of wells being limited to 3, and then really scrutinizing over that. I actually read something that I read a little differently than I had previously read before. I think maybe we might all still be a little bit in that boat, but I'm going to bring it up here for you for consideration. But our current proposal for the maximum number of wells that could be used in a development domestic allowance is 3. Okay, and again, you just have draft policies in front of you, so you haven't set anything in stone. And I'm not trying to put anything on you, but when it was brought to my attention that, you know, there are some limitations to that. We tried to use 3 because it was kind of assuming that cumulatively it would be restricted to 35 gallons per minute. Okay. And that 35 gallons per minute divided by 3, you start getting, was that 11.6 or something? And you start getting to where like, okay, that's sort of a threshold for serving a house appropriately. But as we were pouring through it and I got to reading the ordinance language a little bit closer, we do read this. I read this a little differently. The maximum flow rate from each well or developed springs, and this is under 2-2-1176, which is the development domestic allowance section, and then sub B. And my read of that is actually that maybe we might be able to there could be a couple of ways to look at that. It seems like maybe it's not necessarily 35 gallons per minute or less for all of the wells operating simultaneously. And I specifically say that because, and Roger, if you do have it open, if you could read sub C, which is about the volume on that, it does specifically talk about it cumulatively altogether. And so the annual volume for everything is quite clearly cumulatively to acre feet, but this, maybe this does suggest that you could have, as long as each individual, yep.
Well, I'm just gonna say, all of these have to be metered, all of these wells. So. And it's got a cumulative flow meter on it. So each of those wells, if they were pumping 35 gallons a minute, they would be able to pump a total of 3.33 acre feet to stay under 10 acre feet. You know, the 10 acre feet then becomes the default limit.
Yeah, and I was trying to bring it up here because I'm going to suggest you might reconsider the 3 well limit for the development domestic allowances, because I do think that has been something that multiple people have come in and talked to me about as a struggle point.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to look for solutions, really digging through it. And frankly, I don't know how many times I've probably read something, but I kind of like, oh, well, maybe that doesn't need to be, as a whole limited to 35 GPM simultaneously. You'd certainly still keep that annual budget. There's no budget on that 10 acre foot amount, but you'd still be looking at an annual budget that is that has that kind of a cap, but the actual diversions could go on and off at the same time, and maybe there'd be a simultaneous, for these, in this case, 3 wells, but that's just a hypothetical. Even say it was 4, say they exceeded their 35 total, but each one of them was still less than 35. This seems like it might accommodate that, but certainly stand board's direction on how you want to handle those wells. And this is kind of, I know, a lot of new additional information in a schematic form. It is a little related, although there's some different pieces of it, but we've got to kind of bite it off like that. But anyway, these were some things I thought, these are schematics. We can do schematics in any other way that you want. These are have to be the ones that we pick to think that might help the board tailor some of the actual language. And for that, I'll sit down or stand for questions or whatever you want. That is the end, right? Oh, there's one more. My apologies, Mr. Briggs. Oh, yeah, this one. This is the one that's highlighted in your text still. And now in this scenario, where we're acting like if that's not there or not there, imagine it's not there for a second, and then we've just got these 3 individual wells on individual houses, which would all be normal to push this along through not a development domestic allowance. Now, the red one there, we're calling that an existing 602, okay? It's not an application that, is under our allowances. But this does highlight that question that I think the board needs to give us some direction on and I apologize to the other board members, but George, just so you've heard the whole spiel, the state-based 602s are amounts of water that an applicant can get without noticing to adjacent water users. There's no formal public noticing of it. There's not an adverse effects analysis and so forth. And that would be the same situation with these new allowances. And so the whole idea of this discussion kind of coins around what they call combined appropriations off of the reservation, which is when you hit this certain number of they call them officially an accepted or permit. There's not a noticing, there's not an adverse effects analysis, and how to handle that situation in this unique landscape where we have, effective date, compact effective date, exceptions to a permit and post compact effective date exceptions to a permit. And board members, I'm not trying to give you the answers, but rather to paint the question and seek your guidance.
Where are we at in our policy?
I would, I thought you would like to unload some stuff. I think we should go, if you want my suggestion, I think we should go to that section of the policy 22-17 and work through some comments and some armed with this schematic background and see what you want to do.
And when we're done, can we get the presentation you just made electronically?
Of course, we'll post it to the interweb as well. Yeah, the only reason you have it sooner is because we'll work up to the final hour on these.
No, that's
to get
okay.
us-
I think that regardless, it's gonna, this stuff's not automatic, so it's gonna take, you need to consider it.
Bear with me, Mr. Chairman, I say this is my last. So, Mr. Chairman, board members, sorry for the stuck up policy there. Sometimes you don't have the right clothes for wipe these glasses off, but I would suggest we might just move through this from 1 through and deal with each of the line items as needed.
Yes.
Okay. The item 1 was, and please, Mr. Chairman, board members, if you're sick of hearing me talk, you just tell me why I discuss them, but the using existing wells, there was some editorial improvement we thought we could make. to clarify that it would be for unregistered and new uses. And which really just helps us to know that this is not something to replace a registration or an existing water right. And so this is really more of a jargon. And it does directly reference ordinance 2-1-101 through 108, which is both the CSKT and the state-based registrations. Basically, you can come in and apply for a new use as long as it's not already covered as a registration. And I will tell you that your direction to be able to use existing wells has really helped a lot of people out. I want you to know that that is an important that is an important thing that has been done by this board, and that is a routine occurrence here. So.
Have we had occasion to actually modify anything?
Could you elaborate a little bit, Mr. Chairman?
It says if an applicant chooses to use an existing well, OE may require modifications.
No, we've not had to modify anything. The closest we got is we do have, I think, one that's pending. We want them to withdraw their former water right. There are one or two of them. One, and because the former right is no longer used, and they want to repurpose the well in its entirety, and we're like, yeah, that's fine. Just got to get rid of that old water right that doesn't go to anything anymore.
We can change the long side of the plan. Design.
Okay, and so there was one modification on the lawn size to accommodate an existing use, so that the existing use and the new use combined together would be less than 2.4 acre feet. And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, board members, if you'd like to, you want to just walk you through these proposed changes? Do you want to decide how you feel about them live right now as we're going through the text?
We're on item 1.
Yep.
So comments? Questions?
So the sentences that are in blue, that's what you're adding to that?
Yes, we have been through this section through this workshop board previously.
Okay,
Everything was looking pretty good. Then we were trying to do our diligent job to go through and accept the board's directions on some things, and realized that, you know, we could make some additional improvements, none of which is you know, intended or you know, modifies what the board's direction was, but this was just something that we didn't handle.
So the blues changes.
The blues changes, yeah. It changes that you didn't do as a body, just to be clear, and they're there for you to propose as an improvement, and to also be cautious not to change things that you were unaware of were changing. So.
And also when the ordinance language is cited, that's information that's directly out of the ordinance.
Yes, so that references the registration process in the ordinance, and we've tried to add direct ordinance references as per the board's request, you know, in this document.
We'll move on to number 2.
approve.
Well, we're at 22-117. Do we want to approve that whole section or each one at a time?
I would suggest one at a time, Mr. Chairman, but we will, serve you however you'd like to do this workshop.
Okay. You want to, if you want to approve these one at a time, we can do that. I'll take public comment each time.
For what it's worth, Mr. Chairman, and Haley, you'll have to come off mute if you want to disagree, but I think if this board is okay with it, you don't need to do public comment for this because this whole package is gonna go to a 15-day public comment period after you workshop it. And does that make sense, Mr. Chairman?
It does. So are we actually approving it then with action or just consensus?
Mr. Chairman, I believe this is a consensus, excuse me, a consensus situation. And what you're really doing is developing, kind of like you did with the complaint process, what you want to throw out to the public and get.
And then approve it after.
And yeah, and get a public
Okay.
feedback. And so this process will end with you saying this set of WP&Ps is ready for public comment. That'll be a board action item. And then we'll put it out for 15 to however long days, and then it'll come back. We'll tell you our best summary of the public comment, at which point you'll either modify, keep, or whatever, you'll take a second action.
Okay, item one, yes, Roger.
So I guess I kind of concur with your thought that maybe we should just approve it as this section as a package, because I don't see a whole lot of changes in this stuff, and so we can
That whole section.
yeah, we can just do it more rapidly that way.
Yeah. Okay, so number two, there were no changes.
I have
Next,
one
yes, go ahead.
question, though. I guess maybe I'm working from an old one. It should, can you scroll up to the top even, please? So I originally, I'm using the previous draft. It was 116. Did this get updated to 117 then?
116 is the section on stock appropriation, stock allowances. And we did leave off, we almost started to get into 116 at the end of the last workshop meeting. Because you'd worked through 117 and I'm dragging you backwards a little bit based on the schematics and some other suggested improvements.
Like that. Let's see.
And just so everybody knows that where it says 22-116, that corresponds with the ordinance section 2-2-116. And with the idea being that you could crosswalk between the ordinance and the policies.
Okay, so that was an update though from what we did on January 16th.
This thing you just saw?
This is.
Yes, yes. And so the updates, just to reiterate, we took all of your direction and the changes that you said to make. We incorporated those, then tried to do a clean read and tried to, make some additional cleanups, some of which handled items that you wanted us to go back and look at and provide some additional thinking about.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess if there's really no changes in any of these others, we've already reviewed them.
Yeah, and so, and you see what, like on the green ones, I try to highlight the sections that had some updates from your past direction. So that's what the green highlighting means. The board had said that our previous language on this was clunky. We tried to clean it up a little bit. Maybe it's still clunky. The effort's here though. And I did, for also your additional reference, this constitutes work that Haley and I performed together over a Teams meeting. So this isn't just these all have my name attached to them, but Haley was along for the ride on this. Okay. I mean, all the good stuff is me. Yeah, if there's anything you don't like, it's probably Haley. And this, I'll just keep talking because while you're reading, but this section is intended to parse out, you know, a new application on an existing well for a use that didn't previously exist gets a brand new priority date, okay? And but you can split the difference if you're using a well that has some freeboard on it for a new use, we'll give you a new priority for the new use, but you retain that older priority date for the older use. And
So are we saying a single well could have multiple priority dates?
that's common. Yes. Not just here, yeah.
So how would that look in this, in the recording of that? When that's printed out, would there be two
Yeah.
uses on the same water right with two priority dates?
Yeah, so they have a remark at the bottom of them that is an association remark. And so all supplemental water rights, all water rights that share a point of diversion, all, you know, anything that has a tie will have a remark that lists all water rights that have that connection. And the connection is more diverse than just sub 4 here. You know, because a lot of times you get like this water right off of this small creek is used on this 10 acres, but we all know it dries up at a certain time of year. Then we go to this other source for use on that same 10 acres. In that case, it will be the place of use that will be associated with the remark, right? And so in this one, it happens to be the point of diversion that will be associated in the remark.
Okay, that was kind of new to me, actually. I'm not familiar with single wells with multiple priority dates. For example, when you say it's common where?
Across the state, including on the reservation.
I don't know why I've never seen that.
You know, it's not as common as a word that
Yeah,
it happens more often. It's not a unicorn, but it's not like all of them are that way. So I don't want to give the misimpression that every water right's got 2 priority dates, but you know, it's certainly maybe 10% or more. It's especially common in statements of claim where people would make a claim on some property or on some use out of the creek, and then 15 years later make another claim, even out of the same source for the same place of use, so that they would have 2 water rights for the same place of use and the same source, maybe even under the same name, and the only difference would be the water right number and the priority date.
Where comment?
Yes, sir.
I just can't tell, which is associated with the valid water rights. Does that S have a line through it?
it's got a line. I had to look twice.
Okay,
It's intended to have a line through there, but
Yeah,
okay.
as you know, we'll have some lingering things like that when this whole thing gets in the package. Hopefully we'll try to catch it.
so just for exercise, read that.
Out loud?
Yeah,
Sure. Existing wells to be used for water use is not associated with an existing valid water right will receive a priority date of the date of application. Existing wells to be used simultaneously for a new use and an existing use associated with a valid water right will receive a new priority date of the date of application for the new use portion. Such existing wells will retain the historic priority date for those existing uses associated with a valid water right.
Is that last sentence, I mean, given the first part of it, is that last sentence necessary?
I think it drives it home. There was some concern when you originally set this policy that we would be whitewashing people's original priority dates. So in this case, I do think
Okay.
it has a certain redundancy, but it is trying to honor the desire from this body to make it clear that we're not trying to mess with anybody's existing priority dates, even when we add a new use to their well. But again, you change that if you need to. And sorry that it's cumbersome. I did really want to have that valid water right component in there, which makes it harder to read, but just want to be clear that it's not just an existing use. It's got to be a. Yeah, I wish you'd done that before I had reading.
Sorry.
I can bounce back and forth between those.
Well, are you guys feeling that this update to the existing wells, this shouldn't be too. That's not really the hard stuff in here, but it's more included to make sure that you know, that we're not changing things without your permission, okay?
All right, next.
And you turn the track changes back on, Mr. Fricks.
Go down to 8.
Yeah, so these just have, there was some. That is something that you did change. We haven't had a chance to do any additional research on what the tribal equivalent is. But I'll add that to my list for also when I engage on cultural considerations for PII.
Well, the municipal water supplies that are managed typically by the Tribal Housing Authority are those, every town has got one. And, Ardley, St. Ignatius. In the Ronan area, there's 3. Pablo's got it. Olson area might, Elmo certainly, Hot Springs. So it'd be equivalent to the municipalities.
Yeah, I said that the home sites will have some, not necessarily water power, but a storage tank.
Yeah.
So there's detached sites, there's clusters. They'll call them off and have their own water system.
So to show my ignorance, are they permitted in any fashion so that we
Not by the municipality, but so we'd have to have. We'd have to have maybe Ethan take a look and show how those are being accounted for though.
Yeah.
In the tribal water right, because they'll be accounted for in that tribal water right, but up until now, until the ordinance, until this compact, there wouldn't have been a municipality under the state rules.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how we would know their existence, I guess.
I'm sorry.
But maybe if it's, how, so that when we go back to see if somebody's within 500 feet that's wanting to get a development domestic allowance, how do we check to see that?
I guess the question will be who's going to be responsible to check.
Yeah, now in this case, it puts it on the applicant, and right now, we, rely on colloquial knowledge. However, the intention is that once the tribes file their registrations, that would include these, and then we will embark on a large mapping project that is, equivalent. There's one off the state. We've got a lot of pieces already together.
Well, for that matter, I mean, somebody is putting in a well near a municipality, how would they know? Unless they thought about it.
Oh, well, so. Well, that's gonna be required as part, that is required as part of the domestic development allowance, that they have to check that it's not within 500 feet, otherwise they have to connect to that.
Right, but how would they, I think I'm just asking the same question you're asking about a
They just
municipality.
look at where the city limits are. Where the current city limits are.
Now, that got to be my question. So what, 500 feet of municipality means 500 feet of what? The nearest connection or the boundary?
No, it's the
or
boundary, it's probably the city limits,
Hmm.
although. In some
Can you change
cases,
A to the exterior boundary?
the city might not have updated their place of use to be the existing city limits too. So they, by default, they would look at the water right and they would look at the place of use, and then from that they would know. But really, it's anymore. It's the city limits for the most part.
And for the tribal housing, tribal water systems. I think tribal housing would be the one to define whether or not there's an actual boundary there, because otherwise it would be just, within 500 feet of the nearest,
Or hydrant or something.
nearest component of that, because they're all over. I mean, it's,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just trying to figure out how we
no,
get this down, and maybe they're all on GIS or something.
no, that's what I'm saying. I think it's, I think easily doable. But that's where they're at, and housing, tribal lands, between them, they can provide that information if we need it.
Okay.
But if it's important for the public to know, we'll need that, like you said, a mapping tool would be useful. I mean, maybe put a active live mapping tool right on our website, and wherever they're at, they can look and see whether or not they're close to a municipality or as defined here, and then they'll have to find the contact and go check it out.
Yeah.
Something like that.
We have that plan substantially in the works
Yeah.
already, and it won't just include these municipal water rights, it'll include every water right on the reservation. You'll be able to sort through them, ones issued by this office, statements of claim, permits, the whole 9 yards. Our office will use that tool to determine physical and legal availability, because we'll try to embed as much water information as we can on our GIS layer, and where we can't, we'll at least link to the CSKT's very nice system, and USGS has got some pretty good data as well for this area.
Right.
Thank you.
And
Editorial.
Yes, sir.
Back into it. Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
So item 10 is that we had this discussion about being able to get a letter from BIP if an applicant was going to use another water right to supplement their domestic allowance plan, I'm calling it. And then I got some direct feedback from folks that that should also include if they have another water right, just that's not part of the allowance. And so this is new to you. This proposes that any domestic allowance plan that includes the use of existing water rights to irrigate lawn and garden landscaping features or for stock must provide a copy of the water right abstract and a statement as to how this use would be incorporated into their domestic allowance plan. So it does the same thing that you wanted to see if people were gonna use a FIP water, except that this has a focus on existing water right, not that's not FIP oriented.
So it's a parallel to a fair use.
Yeah, so if somebody's like, oh,
It's not fit.
we're trying to squeeze a little more, into this allowance. I don't need the yard, I don't need this, and I've got this other water right. You know that my pasture will be, my 5 acre pasture is gonna be irrigated off that. And so when you're looking at that green patch around my house, don't be thinking that I'm doing that off my well, that kind of stuff. You want to move on? Okay.
Anything else on 10?
This before stock water, I don't like that or for stock water. Just say or stock water.
What if we spell it FER? For stock water. Okay, good catch, thank you, Ken. The next section down under 11, this is where we talk about, you remember that slide where do you want to have a limitation on the number of parcels or lots? And then I suggested you also, at least as a body, consider whether or not you want that to be, instead of parcels, homes and or businesses. And this is a suggestion. That's, maybe can you scroll up so we can see the whole sub I? All at once. Yeah, if you double click on your toolbar, it'll make it disappear on one of the tabs. It's just for this one, make it a little harder for you to edit things, but at least everybody can read it all at once.
That's what you're considering is gonna take care of the loophole.
Yeah, that's an option. And then you can go either by parcel or by home and or business, but. And again, we thought you should at least consider the home and or business because somebody could still put a whole bunch in on one parcel, even though they're not separated by property lines. Or leave it the way it is.
Homeland or parcels versus homeland or businesses versus parcels. Would you expand on that a little bit again?
Certainly, Mr. Chair and board members. James, would you mind pulling open the schematic? Or do you mind if we'll go back to the schematic here? I can try it. And we have one that. It's these two, right? Yeah, those are the two. So, in this, and if you could go to the one that doesn't have the exceedance, for this discussion. So in this, scenario, the way that this is set up, if, you didn't serve more than 3 parcels, then this would work for this. But in the hypothetical where this parcel boundary and this parcel boundary are gone, there's just, 3 homes on one parcel. Say it's a commune or something, at that point, the parcel terminology doesn't have the same effect. You follow me? And I'm not saying that I have all the answers here for you or anything, but it's something that would the parcel boundary scenario address the lion's share of things? Yeah, but we don't know what's on the future, and I just want to bring it up as something that you should probably cogitate about.
Is there any other language that would address that large one parcel piece, 3 homes?
Yes. I think, well, there's 2 things that are, sorry, Mr. Chairman, just trying to think through your question.
No, that's fine.
If you can, Mr. Frakes, could you go back to this one? Absent the parcels, boundaries, interior, we don't have anything else that would prevent this on one big parcel. If there was no boundary, these boundary lines were gone, you could do up to 3 times 3. So and then even if we had the parcel language, because these would all be serving one parcel.
What if, each of those houses was a duplex or a fourplex?
That's a different kind of problem.
They couldn't do it.
And the DEQ stuff gets complicated, but we on duplexes and fourplexes, we're still mostly predicated on yard sizes. And that was one of the ideas about when we started investigating this bedroom calculation. We tried to address that very difficult topic, and RV lots, to do a crosswalk using bedrooms, because if you had a metric of bedrooms that you'd allow, then people could stack that up however they wanted to for maximum flexibility. I think generally where we landed with the bedroom idea is that it's a strong suggestion at this point in the WP&P. And so, if that wasn't the intent, we probably need to redraft, but
No, I think you're right.
okay, so that said, we do, there's still gonna be some gray areas on RVs and fourplexes and apartment buildings and things that people are gonna pursued.
So in either this scenario or the one where it's all one parcel, how does addressing it as a home or business change that? As opposed to parcel?
So then, if you could go back to the three, the one that's not got the fourth. So in this case, regardless of whether these property boundaries were in here, the same restriction would apply. Cause we'd be looking at 1, 2, 3 of the individual home and or business connections as opposed to 1, 2, 3 parcels, or 1 if there's no parcel boundaries.
Can you go back to that proposed language again?
All right, well, it's.
So maybe I'm confused, but your language still addresses parcels.
Yes, the last discussion I had with any board members was in promotion of parcels. And we started drawing the schematics, we realized that maybe you shouldn't have been parcels, maybe you should at least consider. I'm not saying should have been, but like, when we drew the schematic, you can see that parcels didn't necessarily get us where I think you were pointing me to, to look for some sort of resolution. And so at this point, I'm just saying, yeah, the language says parcels, but you should consider an alternative, or just know that for large parcels or people wanted to come in and do 3 shared wells with 3 houses each, which is the most maximum you'd get to anyway, before you were a development domestic allowance, they would be able to do that on a single large parcel. Unless this, sorry, go ahead.
What are you suggesting then?
I'm suggesting you guys, consider using houses and or businesses instead of parcels.
Okay, so it's an either or, then not really. Well, same time.
Well, I wanted to, be fair to the original suggestion I got and not, not walk away from that without having a discussion.
And I saw it as either or, but I see the C above has the homes and or businesses language.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me this, why did we pick the term parcels in the first place?
We're just at a phase of trying to figure out what to do.
Okay, so it's not mandated anywhere, repetitive, anything else in WP. So we could go ahead and substitute homes or businesses, no contradictions.
Yeah, I mean, it's in there because like when Roger was shotgunned a really complicated problem and, without much time to think about it, he said,
So it's not contradicted anywhere else.
not to my.
Jamie shaking said no.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I want. I don't see a problem.
No, my question is starting to get to be, how do you square language in C with the new language?
Would you like to see that?
Should be an and or businesses. Thank you.
So.
Some of this discrepancy, I guess, between businesses, homes, lots and parcels may arise because of the intent of the purpose of the development domestic allowance. And when we had an initial kind of working group and the tribes were involved, the intent was to use this water right for minor developments, minor subdivision developments. And a minor subdivision development consists of 5 or less parcels or lots. And so I think that's maybe why the lots and the parcels came into play. In fact, I can look back at the memo that was written by CSKT, and it says apply to state minor subdivision definition to development allowance with some crosswalk for non-typical parcels. So I, the whole thing with the businesses and the homes, that I don't, you can have 4 homes on a lot, or like we just talked about. So that's where I kind of am going with parcels and lots versus businesses and whatnot. I mean, there's probably some of these little strip mall subdivisions that got 5 or 6 businesses in them, and they're all on one well, but they're a minor water user, they're not. So that's why the lots and the parcels came into play, I think. And I totally concur with that basis for these domestic development allowances that, it's designed to get these minor subdivisions taken care of. And then once we get to a major subdivision, then we get into our full-blown applications.
And I'll just remind everybody that when they get pushed into a development domestic allowance, they've got to measure the water.
Yeah.
Which is a significant, impact to an applicant. And just so as you move through this, I don't want folks to lose sight of, it's more than just us trying to like put things in a box. There's actual ramifications to getting pushed into the development domestic allowance.
Hey, Ethan, can I just mention something too with this?
Yes, please.
So I think we have to be careful with this section and changing it to homes and businesses, because this is the start of sub I is the exact definition from the ordinance of development. And in that definition, it uses parcels. So we need to be careful with changing that language, if we're gonna be citing the exact definition here.
Okay,
What do you want us to do, Haley?
we gotta go back to the language we had, correct?
Back to parcels.
Yeah,
So-
so it ended up being parcels.
What part of the ordinance is that from, Haley?
So it's actually cited right above that in the red. So it's in the,
11104.
yep, and then it's definition 16.
That was why I was asking, how do we square the language? It says 4 or more homes, businesses. So it is kind of a two-step, and I'm trying to think through, how do we combine them, and it is kind of combined already by C. And it says additionally conditioned by section 12. Which is that definition. So as you read that, the way it's written, Ethan, it says and additionally conditioned by. How does that make a difference for you?
I'm sorry, I was just trying to get through the, So the thing is on that definition that James just changed, it does specifically bring up the development's definition, but then it goes on to clarify that within that area that's defined as a development area, okay, that the stuff that we would be adding here is that no combination of individual or shared domestic allowances can serve more than 3 homes and or businesses. And so it does use the same terminology lead to the lead in, but then it is actually specific to individual or shared domestic allowances within something that's defined as a development by the compact.
So it's modifying it. Well, not modifying, it's
Conditioning.
That is exactly, we've been trying to do so accurately to use the exact same language from the definition so that we don't modify that, but in this case, we do modify what, how that applies to the individual or share. And again, that was the logic here on the drafting and not intended. If the board goes with parcels, we can do parcels, but that, I don't think that it.
Well, I think your explanation is good because you're not changing the compact, but you're saying, well, this is what it means in real life.
Yeah.
This is how we're gonna apply that definition.
That was the intent, yeah.
And I'm comfortable with that.
I have a little problem with it because the language in the compact has a period after residential units, and that's where it ends. So then that whole no combination of individual shared domestic allowances, that implies that that's part of the compact, and it's not part of the compact.
We just put a period after units.
Or you could even just say, for developments, pursuant ordinance sub 16, comma, no combination of individual or shared domestic allowances can serve more than 3 homes and or businesses. Which, I mean, I kind of like this because it's a little easy, if you got the definition is right there. You don't have to crosswalk it, but we could just specifically put the development in there instead of the whole section that starts with 4 and ends at units. So just say 4 developments.
What if we got rid of no condemnation down to there, and then just left domestic allowances that serve more, or a development domestic allowance?
Sure, yeah, I think that could work also. You still have to answer the question about parcels and lots there.
And your comment about not matching the ordinance language?
Yeah. To be consistent with the ordinance.
Well, if you just hit the period after units, cite the ordinance and then put the rest of it in parentheses, would that work? The ordinance language that we're talking about, is that the 11104?
Yes. 16. Okay.
If you leave that second parcel, you have to close the loophole.
Sure.
Say that again.
If you leave both sentences address parcels, you have not closed the loophole.
You close part of the loophole. You close the loophole that includes property boundaries, but not the one that would include a single parcel. And so if it goes by parcels, if somebody came in and applied for, 9 houses on a 20, on 3 shared wells, we approve it. So, you see what I mean? It closes half of the wall. Like we could have the final Jeopardy song playing right now.
Would it matter? I don't know if it matter. Would it help to put the language in that chart side by side? Maybe this trouble, I don't know. Let me just clear this up. So starting with C down through I, the change language. What is it intended to do?
So C says that if you're gonna have a development domestic allowance, it's gonna be connected to at least 4 or more homes and or businesses. And so it's a clarification that, if you're gonna be doing a 10-acre foot, measure your water arrangement, there is a minimum.
Where, what if we put a period after residential units, and that's the compact, and then just make a whole new paragraph. Can you scroll up for a minute?
So part of it too, you know, is it says the title of 11, maximum number of connections. Where
I think the C crept in there.
if it just
And
number,
we should, yeah, would you, and maybe what's the title of the one up above that? Just to. Okay, let's just change that to number of connections for now. And, I get that. I mean, we could, just like. If, you see the sentence there, it starts at the bottom of the page, domestic allowances that serve 4 or more. If we were just to change that to say, individual and shared domestic allowance, no, that doesn't do it, sorry. Oh, yeah, it says under affiliated ownership. It's hard to describe the need, you gotta have that definition of development, domestic allowance, or of the development, excuse me, in there in conjunction with the 4 or more homes and or businesses. You know, to solidify things. Can you go back a notch, to pull just do a undo? Need to pull this back up here? Yeah. Copy the ordinance reference up above.
Yeah, put the,
You include the word ordinance too, sorry. Copy that, dump that in, yeah. Yeah. And then just delete the whole first part and say, for areas defined as a development, sorry, like at the very first of I, start deleting from contiguous all the way to your paren on ordinance.
Oh, you're saying that.
Yeah, leave 4 though, leave the word 4, and then replace that with capital developments. And then you could even, I don't know if, I mean, that way it doesn't look like we're tinkering with maybe in between developments and ordinance, you could say as per.
yeah,
There's no comma. Something, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I think there is. Probably isn't. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Don't listen to me. Let's go with Ken's and yours. As far as I'm concerned, you could delete the last sentence now. Right? Yeah, delete from there all the way to the end, right? I mean, it's sometimes it's a little useful. But. You know, to help people know that they're,
I think you can delete it, but I agree with you, I think it's useful.
okay.
And it flushes it out. It's not necessary legally.
What do you guys think about that update, and change parcels? In both circumstances to houses and or businesses. And they should be, I guess that should be capital, actually, homes and or businesses, and I guess we should capitalize those. Wait. Let's see if they're defined. Yep, home is defined. And business is defined in the ordinance. Business is definition 8. Home is definition 31.
We're getting out of this lots, I think.
I'm just throwing stuff at the wall still here.
Well, if you're gonna say that, then you don't want that as per ordinance, because that suggests that that ordinance says on the business, which it doesn't.
How about for developments as defined?
As defined by.
As defined by ordinance, sorry, yeah, so take the per out and change that to as defined by.
Yeah.
Do we need to put the ordinance definition for homes and or businesses in this section? There's something else to look at.
If you're gonna add the ordinance, I'd add it to C, not this one.
Okay. And we can add the ordinance language, so you want to just like we reference the ordinance in C. For the definitions of development. And homes and or businesses, then it could just use the capital terms in. I, which will end up being D, I'm not sure why it's an I necessarily. That's an artifact of trade changing. Haley?
Yep.
Awesome.
On which part? The C? Like referencing to the ordinance? Is that what we're?
No, mostly if this approach solves things.
Let me take back what I said earlier, if you're gonna define homes and business with ordinance, put it in A.
Yep. Okay. Good.
What's the section?
That would be, just copy that 11104, except make it 8 and 31.
Something you said a second ago maybe helps me in my head, that I should actually be D. Because I keep looking at I as sort of a modifier to, or a condition to C. And when they're talking about a condition, it says conditioned by section 12 below, which is a totally different section. Is I actually supposed to be D?
I think it should be D, yeah. But we'd have to sometimes when you do the track changes, it messes you up when you go into a tree of,
That's fine, but I think. Maybe it's just me, but maybe that helps.
Well, and that actually came from my suggestion to put it as a sub to C, because it
Oh.
adds to C, and it's not a separate thing, it just adds to C.
I can see it as separate. I don't know, you can lump or split.
If it's, yeah, well, if you intended it that way, I mean.
I think the reason why I had it as sub is because when you're working on statutory construction or rule construction, you know, you have your three targets that you're hitting here, which is individual domestic, shared domestic, and development domestic allowance. What you want as D is not a fourth target. It's part of the third target in that section.
So maybe we should change the part of C that are connected to 4 or more homes and or businesses. That should be the first sub under C. And then the second sub under C would be what we're trying to change here. And then it's hard to even describe.
I'm lost. Let's let it come out for a second.
So, circling. I feel like we're just citing the ordinance here. And it's the purpose here really to be to put clarity to the developed domestic allowance. Is that the objective here in the policies? Because today, most of that language is already in the ordinance. You know, A is in the ordinance, B is in the ordinance. C is in the ordinance. And what we've been really circling around is the domestic, what is that? It's more than 3. And we're trying to further define what multiple, so that
I don't think that that defining, I think 4 or more is that's new to these.
yeah, it doesn't.
Okay, and so, and then subsequent to that, this specification, you know, here about, you know, these individual or shared domestic allowances not being able to serve more than 3 homes and or businesses, that's new also. You know, whether you like it or not, I don't know, but I'm trying to,
Right,
you know, again, so that those parts are new. This last sentence is, I think, additional clarification for the first part to let you know that you know, it has to be allowances. Yeah, that serve 4 or more, that those will be, you know, considered a development domestic allowance.
I'm looking at it as explanation of what C is about. I mean, this is, you know, the people who pass the ordinance weren't really thinking of all the details, and we have the authority to interpret it. And this is how we interpret it. Which is good logic.
That's what we're trying to do. I mean,
Until the Supreme Court tosses it here to
You know,
come.
it's just,
But they're not binding on us anyway.
with development, domestic allowance is physically connected to multiple homes and or businesses. And then we're further clarifying that to say that's 4 or more. You know, it seems like we should just leave it at that.
yeah, but that doesn't address the situation on how many things you can do under a combination of individual or shared domestic allowances.
So I guess if you're gonna do 3 individual wells, you gotta drill 3 wells. That's expensive. Or you're gonna drill 1 well, share it among 3 and be a shared domestic. Or do you want to be considered a development with the opportunity? It's the same limit on the water, right? It's still 35 gallons per minute, still the domestic jumps or the development jumps to 10 acre feet. But it's still the same rate. So part of me wants to say we're overthinking this. And it's up to the applicant on whether they want to file 3 wells or 1 well. Because that's, if they want to spend money and drop 3 wells. Wouldn't that be okay?
But you tell me, and if there's a parcel with 3 wells and 3 houses attached to each well, which is 9 total. Which I think we all think that's probably a development domestic allowance. It wouldn't be without this language. That's what this language here is primarily designed to clarify. Is, you know, how many of the individual or the shared ones can you put in before you're, you know, full blown, you know, development.
Yeah, and I guess your scenarios of what, but that comes back down to how much you can afford. That, I mean, you could have, you know, 18 of those instead of 3 is 18 houses or parcels, and then drop 18 wells, but no one can afford to do that.
Well, yeah, people can definitely afford to do that, but you know, in this situation, you know, we're just trying to get you guys to draw the lines around, well, because we got to figure out how to make decisions in this, you know, and maybe if some of it's a little redundant, that'll be all right, but we'll know exactly how many is too many before we push somebody into the development
So that
allowance, because I don't want to be causing people to have to go measure water and do these other things unless, you know, this body's pretty much directed me to do that.
So part of this would be if an applicant came in with, the question is, if I came in with, 3 individual applications and they're right next to each other, would you deny those 3 and say these should be shared?
Today, no, we would not deny those.
And is that what we're trying to clarify here, is where these would come into play? To help you as a officer.
So you're trying to clarify how many homes can be hooked up to those 3 wells. That's what you're really, I think 3 is the magic number that is under the individual or shared for this thing that's defined as a development, these closely grouped or contiguous affiliated ownerships. And so now the next question is, well, how many, because a single shared well can be hooked up to three houses. That's ordinance language that's not negotiable for us, okay? So it can serve at least two, but not more than three. So now we've got like 3 wells, we have the up to 3 houses. You know, the next part is just like, well, you know, and maybe the board's like, yeah, on a single parcel, you could do 9, and we understand that direction.
So maybe what we're doing is approaching this wrong. Maybe the board should decide as a matter of policy, do we want to impose this limitation on them? When we figure out we don't want to impose a limitation, then we come up with a language and meet it.
And so, from my understanding was that generally you wanted some sort of a limitation that looked a little like this. And again, you know, I'm not trying to get ahead of you. Okay, but at some point I have to try to draft things that approximate what I think you want, because I can't, you know, I'm drafting for 5 people who, 6 people, excuse me, who, you know, will come and look at it, maybe not even all agree, and then come up with what we're gonna push.
Okay, so what you're saying is we've already decided that we want to have a limitation.
Yes,
So
yes.
now we just have to come up with a language that meets that limitation.
That, I think that that's correct, and the measure of that limitation needs to be also, that's what we're doing here as well. So we're refining the limitation to a very specific, you know, these are numbers of homes and or businesses or possibly parcels, you know, and so we're gonna get real specific, and the reason is because people, one of the most common questions that are asked of this office is how many homes can I put on a parcel without having to measure water?
Okay, so.
And that's why, because this part is not hypothetical. This is like every day people are asking this.
Yes, I get
stuff like that. Okay.
Take it, here's what I'm suggesting, take off the first sentence and start it with domestic allowances to serve 4 or more facilities existing, shall be considered, that says it all. Keep it simple.
Yeah, you gotta define for individual and shared above.
Yeah. I mean, I think I can live with that, yeah.
I mean, maybe you want to say shared or domestic allowances serve 4 or more. I don't know if you even need to say that, but.
Right, yeah, that's good work, Mr. Briggs. Well, the problem with that is, without the close, contiguous or closely grouped, now all of a sudden, just, you know, if a person's got 3 parcels in 3 different counties, they would be under affiliated ownership. You know what I mean?
But they're not contiguous, then.
Right, that's what I'm saying, we have to have, if we're gonna do this, you know, we can't just have part of the definition of development, we have to have that other part about contiguous or closely grouped as well. You know, or just use the
Change. What
You're already doing that in C.
Yeah.
You're suggesting getting rid of that?
That's what I'm suggesting.
I still think you need the contiguous or closely grouped because of that spacing issue.
But I mean, the definition of 104.16 is contiguous or closely grouped.
Right, but this is in relation to individual or shared. And yeah, that definition, either cite the definition or add the contiguous or closely grouped parcels, one of the two. You know, if that affiliated ownership is going to be in there. Delete that and say. In a development as defined by ordinance. Change the per to defined by. Yeah, and thank you.
I just don't think you need to say it twice.
Well, especially if it's a subset, I mean, it's sub C, I mean, it's C sub I, right?
Yeah.
So what if you just use that instead of I, use double I instead of I? It adds a little more definition.
So, well, okay, I'll take this more then. How about if we just say, take the as defined in the ordinance and then put it up here. And then you can delete it out of both I and double I. Okay, so I'm sorry, I put that together earlier. On here, yeah. Now you,
This is the definition of development, not development. That's the process.
yeah. Let's get catch. Hit the back button and let's go.
Well, just, okay, put that back, please. Okay, just move the as defined in ordinance to right after the word development.
That's the next level there, Ken. Or maybe we could do domestic allowances for developments as defined in ordinance.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah.
I can stay for about 10 minutes, so I'm gonna go.
Kind of read my mind, we're at 5. As much as I appreciate all of this, minutia over this, this started off as a discussion about whether or not we should be talking about homes and or businesses or parcels. And looks like we're honing in on homes and or businesses, which I think we should probably still, you know, take a hard look at, but this is where we're at.
I was just gonna say, we'll finish this little section of this before we get out of here,
Okay,
so that.
get down to see, so, yeah, is there any reason to elaborate on that last piece?
That's it.
Wouldn't that do a change of use? Maybe.
You can get rid of that now. How's that looking, Dave?
Here, I'm gonna do this.
I guess we're done with.
It's not easier to read.
Oh, you had maximums crossed off.
Yeah.
Global flood on that last one, that's gonna be an enforcement issue. Make it do that.
On 12?
Yeah,
Yeah, we have to keep track of these things. We do, pretty good job so far. But that's what that mask can help us with. Yeah. We hit the print button on through 12.
We're good for now?
good.
So I'm gonna make a note that we'll pick that up right here at 12. Sound good?
Do you guys need work on 12?
No, we've been through that.
You've been through that one already. Well,
Yeah.
can you take off the track changes and see if there's any other, or go back to the regular markup?
That dead horse severely.
12, good.
Yeah, we'll pick up on, wait, go up, what sections are, yeah, we will pick up on, guess you guys do need to look at the last sentence as well, to make sure that it does what you wanted it to. But
I'll put a comment right here to pick back up right.
No, I think we agreed to that.
okay,
That's good.
13 now?
and 13 it is.
Oh, boy.
Yep, you don't even need to highlight that one, just remember the yellow section.
So have you run 13 by Haley?
She's run it through John and stuff, and she's right there, she's.
Okay, that's okay. I didn't know if this is the most current, but we'll be looking at it next week.
Yeah, we're gonna send you an update, okay, and post an update that has all your decisions to this point, and retains all the comments and everything that are unresolved. Okay.
Gotta go.
All right. So we're not taking any action on this.
No, I didn't think you would today, really. So,
Okay.
I want to give you the option.
Closing public comments. You guys are tough, man. You guys are tough, sticking it out with us. Anybody online?
No, we already have it.
Next steps are the next meetings. Any questions or comments on those?
Next meeting is.
You're on 3, the 6th, the 20th and the 27th?
3 and 6 are fine, 27th, my wife wants to go somewhere warm, I'm not sure.
Good time to do
You're
it.
supposed to have the 10th with yes.
Yes.
Like over, Rodan south.
Did you say 3? What did I hear? I heard. something.
There's a 2/6, 2/20. and
Yeah,
2/27.
3 different meetings. I was gonna say 3rd. Yeah, 6:20, yep.
Okay.
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Second.
On favor.
I,
All right, approved. All right, thank you guys.
yeah, thanks.
Bye, Haley. Thank you.
Did a lot of stuff.